What shall we talk about today? Let's talk about the weather. I mean, in St. Lucia we don't talk about the weather quite as often as we do in many other countries where they have very, very different sorts of weather all on the same day. I mean, they say about England that you can have spring, summer, autumn and winter all in the same afternoon. On the other hand, people in Europe sometimes say to me, you know, how can you live down in St. Lucia? It's always the same weather. But of course it's not. They don't understand that the weather changes here, the seasons change. And I thought today we'd talk a little bit about weather. Now, you've probably all seen Mary, our friend Mary Polius on the television, talking about weather. And she talks about high pressure systems, low pressure systems. But have you ever wondered about what exactly is a high pressure system or a low pressure system? Let me just explain a few things to you. A low pressure system, the L like that, it means low. I'll just write L-O-W. The winds flow around all these systems. So if on a weather map you see something like this, that shows you that it's a low pressure system, which means that the pressure is lowest in the middle and higher on the outside. Now that's a little bit complicated and we'll talk about it a bit later, perhaps not today. But the interesting thing to note is that in a low pressure system the wind follows the L. In other words, the wind goes this way round. So it's an anti-clockwise. The wind goes there, the wind's blowing that way. Here the wind is blowing that way. Here the wind is blowing that way. So the wind is blowing anti-clockwise round a low pressure system. If you have a high pressure system, you have the same system in a sense that the wind is blowing around it. So we have it like this. The wind is blowing around the system, but the difference is that in a high pressure system the wind blows the other way. So around a high pressure system the wind blows like that. So if you, for example, were in an aeroplane, let's pretend that we're in an aeroplane and we're flying along high up in the sky. Here we have the little fellow in his aeroplane. As he's flying along here, the wind is coming from this side, so the aeroplane will be blown like that. As he's flying here, the wind is behind him, you see, the wind is going that way, so the wind is behind the aeroplane, and that's called a tailwind. So if, for example, here he's doing 60 miles an hour and the wind is blowing at 20 miles an hour, he's got the wind behind him here, so it'll be 60 plus 20 is 80. So actually he'll go faster if he's got the wind behind him. Now if he decides, this guy up here in a different aeroplane, he's also doing 60 miles an hour, but when he gets to here he's got this same wind against him this time. So instead of 20 miles with him, he's got 20 miles against him. So he's be going 60 minus 20. He'll only be covering the ground at 40 miles an hour. Now I know we've talked about that in an earlier show, I just wanted to remind you. But it's very important for aeroplanes to understand whether they're going in a high pressure system or a low pressure system, because that determines which way the wind is blowing. It's also very important if you're on the sea, if you're in a yacht, you have to know from which side the wind is coming in order to steer your course. In a low pressure system, the wind is actually going out from the system. So it's not really exactly like this, but I'll talk about that in a later show. But if you look at the lines on Mary's map, sometimes it looks like this. And don't forget, this is a low pressure system, so the wind is going that way round, like that. Sometimes it's a high pressure system, same idea again. But of course, because it's a high pressure system, the wind is going the other way, like that. You can see here that these lines are close together, and here they're far apart. Here the lines are close together, here they're far apart. And that tells you, when you look at a weather map, how strongly the winds are blowing. If the lines are close together, the wind is very strong. If the lines are far apart, the winds are quite light. So next time you see a map on Mary's map, Mary Polius, or if you look at the Weather Channel and you see a low pressure area, you know that's how the wind will blow. If you see a high pressure area, it'll be the other way. If these lines are close together, by the way, these lines are called isobars. If these isobars are close together, then you know the winds are strong. If they're far apart, the winds are not so strong. We'll talk about something else tomorrow.